Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks Todd for awesome first talk. I'm actually happy to be as well a part of this first Performance Observer meetup. Thanks Sia and Estella as well for inviting me and actually organizing this. It's awesome to have a platform such as this. And actually, today I would like to talk to you a bit about Web Almanac Performance chapter. So this is a project I've been involved last year. I learned a lot. It was very challenging and fun at the same time, which is kind of my favorite combination. So yeah, I would like to kind of give you a bit of a heads up, some of the kind of what happened behind the scene, how this works. And this may or may not be a recruitment talk as well, for for this year, because as you may all know, this is probably like Web Almanac is voluntary base. So yeah, hopefully more of some of you from here will join. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Ines. I usually label myself as a front-end software engineer. I did have a very nice opportunity to specialize in web performance during my career, and I talk a lot. So that also kind of brought me a web performance GDE status because I was involved in many talks and many projects like this. I do like extracurriculars for some reason. I ever did like. My mom hated it when I was a kid, but oh well, it is what it is. And actually, currently, I'm working as a solutions engineer at Storyblock. So one more thing, I don't want you to hate me, but I am on vacation right now. This is where I was finishing my slides. I'm saying that because my internet hopefully survives this. So far has been so good, but please let me know if anything starts misbehaving and everything. And I did got rid of my husband and daughter, so they're walking. So hopefully they don't barge in. Okay, so with that, I would like to start just with some introduction about HTTP archive, about as well about the almanac itself. As I said, explain how this whole thing went to be, what it is about, and then of course show you as well some of the highlights from the performance chapter that were kind of my favorites about that. So the HTTP archive tracks how the web is built. It crawls millions of URLs both on desktop, on mobiles every month, and the URLs actually come from the Chrome user experience report. So this list of URLs is fed to the archive private web page test instance the first of each month. And the tests are performed on Chrome for desktop and emulated on Android, on Chrome for mobile. The test agents are run from Google Cloud regions in the US, and each URL is loaded 2 times. It's loaded with an empty cache for the first few for normal metrics collection, and again, like in a clean browser profile using Lighthouse. So that data is collected and then populates various tables in the BigQuery. I guess most of you are as well familiar with the BigQuery, so HTTP archive data set of BigQuery is publicly available, so you can go inside, you can explore, you can play with the data. And of course, BigQuery as itself, it's just a data set. It's the part of the Google Cloud platform, and of course allows us for data storage and analysis. So I put here as well down a link that I will share with you about getting started. So this can be also quite tricky when it comes to writing these queries, especially if you, like me, have not written queries since university. So that was one of the challenging parts. Why HTTP archive? So HTTP archive is there for web community to use this data to learn more about the state of the web. And I guess most of us are in that position. So for me personally, I've been using data archive, the HTTP archive and Almanac for a few years now. And actually that was the part that kind of pushed me into this whole project, was the fact that in the last 2 years, every single one of my talks that I did had something from Almanac, from HTTP archive. And when I found out that it was a voluntary, that you can contribute, I was like, okay, since I've been using this data for so long, like I might as well help out with actually creating it. And other than that, of course, we have research supports, for scholars to cite and like publications. like ACM and IEEE, and as well as industry leaders to use this data to calibrate their tools and accurately represent how the web is built. Whew. A big shout out to many of us familiar faces. No, so these are the HTTP archive maintainers. No, Pat, Rick, Paul, Barry, and Max. And thank you so much for actually working on this project, for making sure this crawl happens. Sorry. And of course, for giving us all of this data. I'm not going to go much more into the story about HTTP archive. Actually, one place I want to point you to is the stream. So there is a recording from the stream we did when this year's Almanac was published back in November. So I think the stream was in December, but publishing was in November. So you also have the link here that I will share with you. But this is where Henri hosted a lot of people working on this project, and actually Rick and Barry are telling a story how Almanac and our HTTP archive came to be. So this is a very interesting story that, well, them who did it tell much better than me, so I'm not going to tell their story. I'm going to send you there to actually check this out. Web Almanac itself, no, it's a project, no, on top of HTTP Archive. So it's HTTP Archive's annual State of the Web report. So HTTP Archive gives us the data, and then we have to do something with it. So in the HTTP Archive came to be in this part of kind of let's make sense out of all of this data that exists. And it actually started with Web Performance chapter, and then bit by bit, it kind of just built on top of that. And I'm actually tell you later how many chapters we had this year. So how does it work? It takes a village. So it definitely takes many people to actually produce one of these chapters. So the chapters, there is many different roles that were there. So we have author role, which is the lead, kind of leads this content direction for each chapter, is the person or people, of course, that write this. We have analysts, which are the one who hopefully have done some querying after university, who are responsible for researching these stats, creating queries and everything. And then, of course, kind of getting this data and giving them to authors to write a story about it. We have reviewers who assist authors with technical reviews. We have editors who help us out, of course, to especially non-English speakers, know to actually polish this out with nice structure and make this nice and cohesive. Also, especially if there is more authors involved, sometimes there can be slightly different voices and all of that. So that's why we also have editors, translators to make this globally accessible, and as well as a team lead who coordinates the team and makes sure everything is done in time. And it takes time as well. So it took us, I think, around 6-7 months altogether, to, like, from the beginning to the end of this project. So of course, it all started with this first team meeting and the chapter outline. Once the teams were kind of set, we had the meeting, we outlined what we want to talk about. So in case of performance chapter, I was one of the authors, and I checked like the last year's kind of for inspiration to see what was, what data has been used, what we talked about, and all of that to kind of build on top of this, and then of course expand it with some extra data. Then we had actually very, very important deadline, which was HTTP archive crawl. So before that crawl happened, what we had to do was to define custom metrics and prepare queries for those metrics. So as I already said, inside of the crawl, no, we get a different, like web page test reports as well, some Lighthouse and all of that. However, if you want some extra metrics, if you want to correlate something or find something inside, is there maybe this script on it or things like that, you need to write, of course, decide that you want that, and then as well write some custom queries to include them inside of this crawl. So after this crawl happens, there is metrics validation. And of course, then these metrics, then something happens, which I think I learned this for the third time in my life, which is pivot tables. There was a lot of pivot tables going around. But basically all of this data, the query happens in the BigQuery tables. No, then it gets extracted into the Google Sheet, and then the pivot tables start, where we also kind of start playing with the data to see what makes sense. Do we want to show mobile? Do we want to show desktop? You probably, if you've seen the chapter, you've seen different charts and graphs, and this is actually where it happens. It happens in the Google Sheets, no, where we then play with this different metrics. Once we have that, we try to make sense of them. Now we saw like what was happening, does it make sense? And then of course, why are these trends? Are these trends not trends? If something is kind of out of the ordinary, why? And of course, again, you can read all of our thoughts, and of course put on top of your thoughts as well in the chapter. After that, the review happens, edit happens, and then there are some more or less, actually something that's turned out to be more time than I expected was this preparation of the chapter for the publication, which was transferring it to Markdown, putting some these graphs in the proper formats and everything for accessibility purposes as well. So that was as well that kind of a lot of work, which is not kind of not super concentrated work, but a lot of this, a bit of automatization, which as well is working on to be done an extra. And then there was actually the launch of the Almanac, which was a deadline that was thankfully shifted a bit as well, because we did not make the first one. So this is also one thing to emphasize. Of course, everything is voluntary. All of these teams, probably all the people in these teams have their full-time jobs. They have, of course, stuff happening in the life. So this is something that it was, in the end, for me, I was happy to see it was very flexible, and all of these, we were in the constant communication over Slack with the organization to see, okay, let's push this so we can do a nice launch when everyone is ready. So that happened, if I'm not mistaken, on 11th of November 2024. And that was actually 19 chapters. So not on 11th of November, we did not release all 19 chapters, but I guess about half of that was released that day. And then, of course, as people were finishing their chapters, there were more and more coming, which we probably noticed, as well. And it was actually fun to see how this works. Of course, how everyone worked very, very hard in the end to kind of push towards this deadline. And even if they did not make the deadline, they still pushed hard to kind of to actually get it out as soon as possible and to have that out. So it was a very, very amazing to see this effort actually happening. Few more numbers I wanted to share with you is actually the 66,000 people, actually views happened, not people, not the unique users, but the 66,000 views of the 2024 Almanac happened between 11th of November and today. The most visited chapter was accessibility chapter, which is not really a huge surprise. No, taking into consideration this is the accessibility year, the accessibility panic year, let's call it like that. And performance chapter had about 2,500 views. So with that, let me actually tell you a bit more about web performance chapter. So the village behind our 2024 web performance chapter is, of course, on the author side as well. As I already saw, it was myself as well as Yevgenia. Then we had amazing analysts. We had Kevin and Estella. We had Rick and Sia giving us very, very, very insightful and great reviews. And actually, editing was done by everyone. There was like so many comments, actually, even from the analysts and of course from the reviewers, kind of just making this, okay, this maybe works better here and this goes here. So it was very nice, kind of like the teamwork when it comes to editing. No translations. So if you're comfortable with any of the languages that are not English, I'm looking at you, feel free to go to GitHub, and there you can see as well everything. I have some links later where you can actually help out into translating the languages. And actually, the challenging role I had this year was also a team lead. So that was the role as well that took quite some time, but it was also quite fun as well. Just kind of organizing meetings, actually making this all up to the deadline and everything. So that was as well a very, very interesting experience to lead this great team. So of course, when it comes to these different chapters. Also, one more thing. This is just a slight story about how I did it wrong because as I said, this is all voluntarily and I really wanted to participate in this project. So I volunteered myself for a few different chapters, not taking into consideration that I am going to get all of them, like get roles in all of them. So other than authoring web performance, I authored also the sustainability one, and I edited the page weight one. So there was a lot of work to be done. So yeah, make sure that maybe you just choose one. So as a side project, especially. So just a bit of a side note there. And actually, it was very interesting to see like this all collaboration. So on the sustainability chapter, we were actually, I think, 6 or 7 authors. So it was quite an interesting dynamic that was happening there as well. Of course, the team lead did as well an amazing job kind of coordinating all of that. So the two was nice for sure, especially when you work well with your co-author. I don't know, like more than that is then questionable depending on like the size of the chapter. In sustainability definitely makes sense because I think actually it's the longest chapter because it has so many parts and like correlations with others. So that was as well kind of beneficial in that chapter. But this having 2 authors was actually quite nice because of course you don't have to do everything by yourself. You get this kind of second pair of eyes. You get to divide work, and it actually you're not alone, which is also always nice. So it's like the second part of this. I would like to show you some of the highlights from the chapters. I don't know how many of you read it, how not, but as I said as well in the stream, no, in a restream, there wasn't actually anything super surprising that we discovered, no, from the data. However, there are some stuff that I don't know, at least were kind of fun for me or were kind of, I don't know, interesting to share. So this is what I wanted to as well emphasize and highlight today. So actually the first one would be just kind of core web vitals on mobile. So the chapter is structured in a way that we talk about kind of core web vitals first in general, and then we have them sectioned, the kind of sections about each one. They're more like not by core web vital, but by interactivity, visual stability, and loading, which kind of allowed us as well to go past the core web vital itself to kind of explore more metrics in that regard. But of course, we started with the basic, which was core web vitals. And here actually is interesting, to see first and foremost the difference between, in the green you can see the core web vitals with FID, and with the blue you can see the core web vitals with IMP. So we all know this, that in 2024 the switch happened when it comes to overall metric. But here you can see how the metric would look like if it stayed, or how it would look like it was IMP before, which is very interesting as well to see, of course. Logical that the core web vitals with IMP are slightly lower, but it's also super nice to see that the progress is there, that it's actually going upwards. The trend is upwards, even like with the both of them. On desktop, of course, there is always a tricky one, because of the, of course, having this having the high-speed connection, so this the device inequality gap that I'm also going to comment a bit later on. So this is all, that's why I always like to comment more on the mobiles, where you can see much better what's actually happening. So this was the one I wanted to share with you. Also, I'm actually very interested for the next year, like how is it going to go with the trend, because one of the latest projects I worked on as a web performance consultant, they were very much in 2023, they were very much in a core web vital panic mode, especially for IMP. And a colleague told me, I'm not on that project anymore. However, a colleague told me that the moment they hit green, that they just kind of stopped caring at all about everything what's happening. So it's going to be very interesting to see as well how this, because I guess as we have a accessibility panic mode on now, we also had the kind of IMP core web vital panic modes last year. Actually 2023, so that could also contribute to this nice upward trend. So hopefully it stays there. This graph here I highlighted to kind of emphasize that they were the secondary pages. So before 2024, we only had home pages scrolled, no, and analyzed from the HTTP archive. From 2024, the secondary pages were added. So I'm still not 100% sure what it gets. So by my understanding, I don't think like Rick or Barry are here, but please correct me if I'm wrong on this. It's basically the secondary pages get as the next navigation, like kind of the biggest element that you would navigate when you click, that you would navigate to from the home page, you know? So it was still a tricky metric because these secondary pages don't really have, they don't kind of, they cannot be all sorted together. So you cannot say, you know, these are product pages or these are XYZ. So there can be very, very random type of pages. However, it's interesting to see, for example, here, as you can see, so good core Web vitals for home pages and secondary. So the core Web vitals do increase, no, which kind of indicates all of these caching strategies and similar about the secondary pages that we navigate to. Top LCP content types. This is actually one that was very interesting for me. No surprises here, no, in general. So the image is the top LCP content type. However, it's actually very interesting to see the difference between desktop and mobile. And this is the one I wanted to pull out just because of this, seeing that a lot of times the optimizations effort don't cover that much as well, sometimes mobile as they should. So we can see here that a lot of times when we're on mobile, the images shrink and the text takes over. So it's still super interesting to see that this is what's happening. And of course, that mobiles definitely deserve our optimization love. This number, so 15% of mobile pages use fetch priority high on their LCP image. By itself, it's not anything crazy. However, it becomes super cool when you see the previous almanacs. So in the one almanac before that, which was 2022, unfortunately 2023 did not have the report. However, in 2022, this number was 0.03. So it actually skyrocketed in these 2 years. And one of the reasons behind it is that WordPress implemented core support for fetch priority in 2023. So with, of course, all the drama, WordPress drama aside, it's still, well, the most used CMS out there, and actually shows how big of an impact the tools as well can have. The tools such as, the CMS such as WordPress, adding something like this can actually have such a huge impact on these numbers. So LCP image formats, again, I don't think there is much anything crazy happening here or unexpected. However, I wanted to pull this out because in my personal work with web performance, a lot of times images is where I see the easiest wins. So let's say like this, kind of optimizing images. I did know, as I said, I was editor for page weight. So they are still the biggest portion of the page weight usually goes to images. And optimizing images is somewhere where we can very easily gain, this moment improvements basically. And this actually shows the same thing because you can see WebP and AVIF are very, very low still here. So they do have an upward trend. However, they're still at 7%, and AVIF is actually below 1%. So I think it's a 0.3 at this point. So actually with a full browser support now, this is the switch that can slowly start to happen and actually help out in this aspect. And this is why this is one of those that I told you, that's why I kind of like to look at mobile a lot of times. So good IMP by device. This is the one that just kind of shows this huge device gap where we can see that IMP has been quite consistent and quite good. The score for IMP over the years on desktop. However, the mobile is a different story, especially in 2022. There was this huge gap between desktop and mobile. as we already commented, no, it just came, the trend is going upwards. Hopefully it stays there, but it's very interesting to see this gap as well in the numbers, how much difference this means, and of course designing for mobile and taking into consideration the pirates. And good CLS by device, this is as well. CLS is my personal favorite Core Web Vitals because I've really, as a user, heavy internet user, this this happening. This is actually, yeah. It gets me very crazy when I cannot read something because it's going around. It actually happened this Christmas. I was looking for a cookie recipe and I just couldn't. I just gave up and went to mix something. Everyone survived, all good. But basically I just could not load the recipe from all the things that were happening over there. So that's why it's my favorite Core Web Vital. I will be forever grateful for its introduction, and it's just kind of showing us again that there was a nice upward trend that's happening there. So hopefully next Christmas I get to bake the different cookies. And actually, I want to do another shout out to the Rum Vision because they provided us with Rum tools. So this is a Rum data actually. So this was actually, as I already mentioned, we had Lighthouse scores, we had from the web page test, we had Crux data. However, with IMP and with interactivity in place, it's not so easy to get the data from some of those metrics. So I kind of reached out to Rum Vision, and they were super nice to provide us with some graphs from their data, especially about interaction, that also gave us a very nice insight and kind of help us get even a better picture about the state of web performance in 2024. So these are few graphs from there. We got IMP subparts. No, that was the one that was super interesting to get. As you can see, these different ones, as well as using the law of script categories, to see which scripts are kind of the biggest offender when it comes to performance, which you can see down there. It's user behavior. So those Hotjar, smart looks, and similar, they were the ones that actually made the most mess. So yeah, that's kind of what I had from you from highlights. Only have 2 minutes left, so I will definitely send you to the chapter if you haven't checked that yet. If you're interested in participating this year, which I really hope you are, it's a very cool project. It's super nice to actually play with this, to see all of this data and to contribute to something that many, of course, people use. I saw so many. I was so proud when I saw a lot of screenshots, and of course from Graph on Performance Now. That was super nice to see that that it's being used from the community. So there is a Slack channel where you can follow when the kind of, let's say, call for participation for 2025 happens, as well on the GitHub. So you can follow it on HTTP Archive Almanac GitHub. And of course, if you have any more questions as well, you can reach directly to me, like anything about, of course, any comments on the chapter, anything from as well, questions about my experience of this whole process. I'm very happy to answer those questions.